but don't worry about it. We all know it, right? Who's on first? It's okay. So, but I love it because it really speaks to that thing where we think we're communicating and we're not communicating at all, right? And how many of us have had that experience? Oh, every hand should be going up in here, right? Because that's not an uncommon thing to happen. Let me go back to that. So what we're going to be, like I said, using is nonviolent communication. I'm going to refer to it as NVC from this point forward. I'm going to share with you some of the things that Marshall Rosenberg says in his book. I want to read verbatim for you this one paragraph. NVC is a combination of thinking and language, as well as a means of using power designed to serve a specific intention. This intention is to create the quality of connection with other people and oneself that allows compassionate giving to take place. In this sense, it's a very spiritual practice. And what we're going to find is this is a deeply spiritual practice for us, because this is exactly what's going to help open out ways that will actually really surprise and amaze us. All actions are taken for the sole purpose of willingly contributing to the well-being of others and ourselves. That's pretty amazing when you think about it, that we can communicate in a way that when we're using the tools in NVC that really put us in that place of willingly contributing to the well-being of ourselves and to other people. And again, I think we've never been taught tools like these. You know, we don't learn this in school, and I think these kinds of things, you know, Marshall Rosenberg really talks about the ability that we have to create peace in our home environments, in our work environments, in our church environments. And if we don't have peace in those places, my friends, we can't possibly expect that we're going to have peace in the world. And that ultimately, as we begin to model this type of communication, other people start to learn this communication as well. And pretty soon, again, it's something that will hit that 100 monkey point where it just grows exponentially. Now, I love the use of nonviolent communication. I just have to share this with you because this is comical to me. When I was doing my licensed teacher process a number of years ago, and I was up at Unity Village, one of the classes that we had to do was nonviolent communication. So we go into this class, and our teacher, bless her heart, she didn't exactly explain the process to us. And sometimes when you're kind of speaking in this nonviolent communication way, if you're very committed to the exact languaging of it, it can almost sound like you're really not hearing somebody else. And they talk, in nonviolent communication, they talk about giraffe language and jackal language. And so she literally came in with giraffe ears and jackal ears, and she just started speaking to everybody in this language. It was like a foreign language to us at the time. And the funny thing that ultimately came out of this was the most violent, nonviolent communication class. It was. It has been talked about for years that people blew up in this class. People left. We were like, the teacher was sobbing. People were sobbing. We're in a circle. And I'm just like, I didn't want to hear about nonviolent communication for years after that, because I was like, what? And then I realized, as I look back on it, it was simply because she didn't realize she needed to teach us the language before she started speaking the language with us. And as you move through this process, you don't have to speak exactly as this. I use nonviolent communication a lot in my communication with people, but I use it in a way that feels good to me to use it. And it's really more about what's behind the languaging of it anyway. Okay, and so what Marshall says is he was really struck by the role of language and the use of words. And so from realizing how powerful this can be, he developed NVC. And he sees this as an approach that helps us to give from the heart, and that we connect with ourselves and in others in a way that allows our natural compassion to flourish. And we're going to be talking more about compassion next week. And so he goes on to say that our natural state of compassion is, as Gandhi said, when violence has subsided from the heart. And we may not consider the way that we talk to be violent, but how many of us have had experiences where somebody has said something to us that was just mean and hurtful, and and it really, like, it cut at us, or we've said those words to somebody else. That is actually violent communication. It may not mean that we're even in a big state of anger or rage, but when we are using words that cut and diminish other people or whatever, that's actually violent communication. How many of us have heard sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Somebody made that up, and it's crazy because words do affect us. They do. As it said earlier, the power of words, they can create or destroy. They can open or close. There's great power in words. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." And so NVC guides us in how to reframe and express ourselves in a clear way in which we really hear others, and we're led to communicate with honesty and with clarity, all the while we're paying others this respectful and empathic attention. And that's really possible actually in every encounter that we have. That's actually possible no matter how the other person is showing up. These are tools for us to be able to use. I love this. In any exchange, we come to hear our own deeper needs and those of others. And how many of us, because I know I was one of those people years and years ago in my relationship with my former husband that thought, if he loves me, he should just know what my needs are. If you really love me, you should know everything about me and you should know what my needs are. That's not true. That's really, that is just so much to put on another person, to think that they should know what your needs are. That's just not reality, and I promise you it will set you up to be hurt. It will set you up to feel deeply hurt. NVC trains us to observe carefully and to be able to specify behaviors and conditions that are affecting us. We're gonna learn to look at things from a little bit different perspective. We learn to identify and clearly articulate what we are concretely wanting or needing in any given situation. It's actually simple, and it's also very transformative. And so I thought about that. Oftentimes we're really unable to specify what it is that we're really feeling and what it is that we're really actually needing in a given situation, as are most people around us. And so things come out in a more negative way, and they come out in ways like, you never listen to me, you always interrupt me, you think that you're better than I am, you think you know more than me, you don't love me anymore, I can tell by the way you're showing up that you don't love me anymore, word sentences like that. And let me ask you this: when we are saying those things, does that create opportunity for non-defensive communication? And not only that, in saying sentences like that are so general, we are not in touch at all. We're not really clear on what we're feeling, and we're certainly not clear on what we're needing. Because all we're doing is putting out this general statement, and then also if somebody says those kinds of things to us, it pretty much closes us down. And it was interesting because I thought about in my own life, I'm a real connector, and so when Sean and I were first together and we got married, and he would come home from anywhere, boy, I was at the door. And I was just so excited and happy to see him, and yet he wasn't at the door for me. And I thought, he just doesn't love me like I love him, because he's not at the door. And instead of initially communicating that with him, I just kind of sulked for a while, because I'm thinking he should just know what my needs are, and he should just know that that's how I feel that he loves me. And it wasn't until finally I communicated with him, and it never even entered his mind. It had nothing to do with how much he loved me. That was just my way of showing that. But when I got clear on what I was feeling and what my needs were, I could see that my needs were being met in other ways. Again, it's just to really start to get clear on what it is that we're really feeling, what it is that we are actually needing. Okay, so some of the things that I want to talk about today, we're going to talk a little bit about speaking and about listening. So first of all, what you're going to find is this is really in close alignment with Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. And most of us are familiar with that. We've done that as a small group. We've talked about that a number of times on Sunday mornings. And he talks about being impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions and don't take things personally. These are going to be three things that we're going to experience time and time again throughout this process of NVC. So one of the things is speak only the truth. Speak only from your truth with everyone, including yourself. And I love this scripture from Ephesians 5:25 that says, therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to his neighbor, for we are all members of one body. It is so important for us to speak from our truth and to speak truth. Now, why don't we sometimes speak from our truth and speak truth? Don Miguel Ruiz says it's if we tell the truth, if we're honest about ourselves, about our thoughts, about who we are, about what we want, we stand the chance of being judged, sentenced, and rejected. And really what this comes down to, my friends, is when we are willing to stand in our truth and to speak truth, we become vulnerable. And we've been talking about this in Soulful Saturdays with Brene Brown's work and vulnerability. And we have a tendency to look at being vulnerable as a weakness. And yet actually being vulnerable takes tremendous courage. Our mission statement is to encourage and empower us, to be authentically all that we came here to be. And so this supports that greater mission of us, is to be authentic in our beingness and to be vulnerable enough to not take it personally when people around us are judging us because we're being authentic. Now let me go on here to say this, because one of the key elements in this is to be honest. There's a difference between being brutally honest and being honest. And I hear people almost make it sound like it was necessary or okay to be brutally honest. Reverend Will Bowen says that brutality and honesty are two totally different things, and brutality comes from our ego. And brutality comes down to this is my opinion, and I'm going to push my opinion on you. But he says honesty, when we are being honest, that we're coming from a calm place. We're coming from a place of oneness. And if we're coming from a place of oneness, then we cannot help but have that compassion factor in there. And we will find ways to stand in our truth and to be honest with each other in a way that is not brutal. Because brutal honesty, again, does that open up the pathways for open, honest, loving communication? Absolutely not. It will close down anybody who's involved in that brutal honesty immediately. You may as well stop right then, because it's absolutely closed down. So it's important for us to stand in our truth, to be truthful, and to be honest. Okay, so we know the whole talking thing. We're going to talk more about that as we go through the process, how we can more lovingly, clearly articulate what our feelings are, what our needs are, and you'll be surprised as we go through this process. And I think you're going to be wonderfully surprised at how you can start really getting in touch with your feelings, how many different feelings there are, and then being able to express our needs. So what I want to focus on for a little while is this wonderful thing we call listening. Listening. This picture here, I think, really speaks to what the talk title is today. Do you hear me listening? Do you notice there's no ears? And they're both speaking? And here's the thing, is that's kind of tends to be a lot of what our communication becomes with each other. Is that we're talking, and we're saying, I hear you, yet we're not even listening because we're talking over each other. So this part of it is so important. In Matthew 15:10, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen and understand. James 1:19, I forgot to format my thing. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Proverbs 18:13, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is folly and shame. It is his folly and shame. And then Proverbs 17:28, even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. I only have 5 more minutes. Okay. I'm going to have to rush through this. Okay, recognize that Jesus was great about really trying to get us to hear, to listen differently. And that's why he spoke in parables and in allegories and in metaphors. And he said, let ye who have ears hear. Of course, everybody had ears. So he was saying, I want you to be able to listen from a different place. I want you to go into deep listening. So we're going to just run through this real quick. Listening is not the same as hearing. We hear sounds. We hear blah, 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 blah. We've seen that before, blah, 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 blah. But listening is when we're engaged in the whole experience of being with somebody. So I'm going to take us through some ideas. We're going to go past that for how we can show up listening better. Number 1, stop talking. There's a beautiful quote by Mark Twain that says, if we were supposed to talk more than we listen, we would have 2 tongues and 1 ear. And clearly it's the opposite. So stop talking and listen. When somebody else is talking, really be present to listening to what they are saying. And here's the big one, don't interrupt. And don't finish their sentences for them. And just stop and listen. Now recognize here that we're talking about when we are in a heart-to-heart connection. I can be with Dee and Cindy in the office and we can finish each other's sentences. I can be with my friends, we can finish each other's sentences. My daughter, that's normal. We are talking about when we are in a deep listening process here. Number 2, prepare yourself to listen. And what this means is be in the present moment. Stop what you are doing, breathe, and bring yourself into the present moment. Let go of what is going to take place next. Let go of what you're going to say next, and be present in the moment. Number 3, put the speaker at ease. And what this means is as you are being in the present moment, you can nod and you can let the person know that yes, I'm listening, I'm hearing what you're saying. You can give them eye contact and let them know that you're listening. You can even just encourage them to keep on. One of the things that I would encourage you to say, and not in an interruptive way to take over, but tell me more. Tell me more. Put the speaker at ease. Remove distractions. And this is, put your phone away. Turn your phone on silent. Actually take the time to say, you know what, I want to be present with this. I think our phone is our biggest distraction. And even if we answer it or not, it ringing in the middle of something, bam, that can close off that communication. But also be aware of what you're doing in the moment. Are you looking off somewhere? Are you doodling with something? Do you have the newspaper in front of you or the magazine? Again, just remove the distractions. Number 5 is empathize. Now, this is a huge one. We're going to talk about empathy and compassion next week. But to empathize is to be willing to see that there's a bigger picture here. To be willing to see that whether we understand it or not, people feel what they feel. And I think this is where we fall short so much, because we think you shouldn't feel that way. Well, so what if I shouldn't feel this way? I do. And it's important to empathize. To empathize is to be able to be with, I hear you, I feel you. And so, to recognize there is a bigger picture here. Oh, number 6 is to be patient. And this is recognizing that, there may be a long pause in that communication. Don't assume that communication is done. Allow whatever time is needed there for the person to fully communicate. Number 7 is avoid personal prejudice. And this has to do with the presentation itself. People, I'm really working on my stuff. But be patient with me and avoid prejudice if you don't like to hear the words if somebody stutters or if they use foul language, that's a personal prejudice that we have. And try to step back from that so that we can really be present to what is going on. Number 8 is listen to the tone. We speak in tones. And somebody may be very calm. They may be saying that they feel okay, but their tone may not be actually expressing that. So listen to the tone as well. Number 9, listen for ideas, not just for words. And this is where we're going to learn how we can link pieces of information together to get that clearer picture, even to help the other person get that picture clearer so that we can be in a more present way, fully understanding. And number 10 is wait and watch for the nonverbal communication. How many of us know that we communicate with body language? Absolutely. And so we want to be aware of what body language is going on. So this is where we listen not only with our ears, but as Dee said, we listen with our eyes and we watch what is going on. And so just using these 10 things right here, if you take these things today and you take them out into communication with people, it's going to change the dynamic of your communication with people, whether you use the nonviolent communication process or not. But here's what I can absolutely 100% tell you, is that when we choose to communicate in a way that we are truly present, that we are listening is willing to be changed by what we hear, and when we are willing to really be present with whoever we're communicating with, where we are willing to empathize, to know that there's a picture, there's always a backstory, there's more than what we can possibly begin to imagine. When we are listening from our heart, when we are empathizing, when we are connecting and having compassion, when we are willing to hear the needs of someone else, and then we can discern whether or not we can meet those needs or not. Doesn't mean we're always going to be able to meet someone else's needs. But what I can tell you is that just the process itself will absolutely change the dynamics of your partnership relationship, of your relationship with your children, with your parents, with your siblings, with your friends, with the people in your work environment, in your community, whatever you're involved with. It will change the dynamics of that, because what we all want and need is we want to be seen, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be understood. We want to be loved for who we are. And we walk around in our lives and we cut people off. And we literally, even though we're all responsible, but we would literally set up the walls that keep us separate. And so just moving through this process that we're going to move through in the next 6 weeks, it will absolutely change things in your life for the better. So I encourage you to come on Wednesday nights and to move through this process more. Like I said, I'm going to be popping it in throughout the next weeks in various ways. We're going to talk about empathy and compassion. Next week, we'll talk about love the following week. But we're going to do some of the processes on Wednesday night. So I want to close with a reading called Words Are Windows or Their Walls by Ruth Berbermeyer. I feel so sentenced by your words. I feel so judged and sent away. Before I go, I've got to know, is that what you mean to say? Before I rise to my defense, before I speak in hurt or fear, before I build the walls of words, tell me, did I really hear? Words are windows or their walls. They sentence us or set us free. When I speak and when I hear, let the love light shine through me. There are things I need to say, things that mean so much to me. If my words don't make me clear, will you help me to be free? If I seem to put you down, if you felt I didn't care, try to listen through my words to the feelings that we share. I'm excited about this journey. I hope that you're excited about this journey. I hope that you will join me and so many other people in this journey to really communicating clearly, open, honest, loving, and clear communication. And namaste, namaste.